Video games. Most of us have played them, and we've all heard about the talks of whether or not they're good or bad for us. My claim is that they provide significant health and social benefits. So, the first health benefit would be video games have been shown to provide improvement in motor skills. Research done by Benjamin Drew and Judith Waters had subjects that played video games They had subjects play video games over about a 2-month span, and within those 2 months they showed considerable improvement in motor skills, reaction times, and other perceptual motor skills. And these were in subjects not in kids, but actually the elderly, 60 to 75-year-olds. Another health benefit that's been shown in video games is the decrease in managing stress. According to researchers at the University of Rochester, led by Daphne Bavier, a cognitive scientist, games stimulating stressful events, such as those found in battle or action games, could be a training tool for real-world situations. So keeping your cool is always a good thing, and they definitely help with that. Carmen Russo-Niello, another cognitive scientist, said, certain strategy games offer just enough mental challenge to keep stressed people occupied while putting them into a state of relative mindlessness. That state appears to have beneficial effects on stress and other mental problems. An example of a strategy-type game that puts you in these situations is StarCraft, a real-time strategy, where you develop an economy, create an army, and eventually destroy your opponent. In this game, you have to continually multitask, keeping your economy, be aware of your opponent and what they are doing, and you have to watch out for what they may throw at you, whether it be a cheesy tactic, which is a term meaning a type of low-blow, cheap tactic, or developing their own economy to develop an army faster than you and eventually destroy you, which is brute force. Video games, again, result in improvement in mental capabilities and learning. According to University of Wisconsin psychologist C. Sean Green, video games change your brain. The way in which video games change the brain's physical structure is the same way as learning to read, playing the piano, or navigating using a map. Scientific American has actually been studying StarCraft recently, and the fact is, StarCraft is a model for learning how to multitask. Multitasking is actually is very difficult to learn, and it's been shown that other skills are much easier. So StarCraft, as it's been recently getting popular, has been showing that multitasking is easier to learn in a video game type environment. So they are studying what are called replays of StarCraft games, which you can obtain through playing the game. And through these replays, they're seeing the key to multitasking and how to learn such. So the social benefits of video games is something many people don't think exists. But of course there is. There's a broader scope to video games, and it's that playing such games like World of Warcraft or Guild Wars, it's a massively multiplayer online role-playing game, which means there are tens of thousands of people online constantly. So there's many people to interact with. And the fact is, not only can you interact with them online, but also in person. I recently was at an event in Las Vegas, and this was a StarCraft II tournament, and there were thousands of people gathered at the Cosmopolitan Hotel to watch this tournament between top-tier pros over a prize pool of over $100,000. And this is just a small scope of what there is to come throughout video games and the social aspects. There's a club on campus, not official yet. It's the Collegiate Star League, and it's basically a club of about 30 to 40 of us, and we compete against other colleges and play StarCraft in a 5v5 format. And recently we've been doing pretty well. We're top 64 in the West region out of, say, 400 schools within the entire US and Canada. So obviously video games provide great benefits, and not just mentally, motor skills, but also in your social life. So you should check them out. Video games are great, and they do great things for you. Thank you.
All right. Well, on the proposition, you got a couple of good things, a couple of bad things. The proposition is very clear. You stated early on, so we know what the subject is. That part's fine. You've got two parts to it, though. It's got multiple claims in it, and you want to have a singular claim covering all of the supporting points, and you basically try to include them in the preview. You know, in essence, your proposition and the preview almost become the same thing, although you actually have a third supporting point that's not really included in that. So that's a little bit confusing. There's not really a preview of the main points. You start, similar to what we heard earlier, you start to provide us with a preview, but instead of laying out what the main points are going to be, you basically dive into that first point and get started on that. I thought that you did a good job signposting the points as you got to them in the body of the speech, although they're not always clearly stated as claims, but we know that the subject matter has changed, so that helps, but I think you want declarative sentences on those secondary points also. The evidence on the point concerning motor skills, you had a little bit of information on this. It was very generic. You did have a source citation on it, but it sounded kind of conclusionary. It appears that there was some research being done, but we don't get any data from that research. We just get the conclusions of the researchers. So it's okay testimony, but I think you probably could have had some stronger information if you actually had data from the research. The same thing is true on the next point. You've got a lot of conclusionary opinions of the researchers that you cite, and again, we're not getting any of the data. So the advantage here is that you do have people who appear to be qualified experts who are siding with you. The problem is that their opinions seem to be conclusionary as well, and it would be easier if we had some of the data from the research, the research that they were doing, so that it followed up on those particular points. The third point, where you're talking about social skills, mostly you just have some hypothetical examples about the massive multiplayer online role-playing games and the number of people that might be on at any given time. But that doesn't show us that people develop any social skills as a result of that, as a consequence. Not being a gamer myself, only being familiar with the kinds of things that I hear about people talking about, I'm not exactly sure that the social skills that people use when they're doing online gaming are the kinds of things that we want to encourage people to do. You know, my understanding is that there's a lot of smack talk that goes on, and saying "die, you gravy-sucking pig" is not exactly a social skill that is something that is valuable, is going to benefit us in the long run. Now, if they're doing other things, for instance, if they are coordinating attacks online, they're making alliances, and those alliances require negotiation, and you've got some examples of those kinds of things, that's what you need to have in that third point. The only other thing that you have on that point to prove it is the club on campus, and you managed to get together with a whole bunch of other people who play the same game, but that doesn't show me that you've developed any social skills except the ability to find each other. And I'm not sure that that was ever in question. So, the fact that you guys are competing and doing well, that's a good piece of information, but it doesn't show that you are developing social skills as a consequence. And I think that's really what your argument is, so you need a better proof on that point. The other strong thing about the presentation is that you do a very nice job delivering. And if the game does have any impact, then your personal presentation helps a little bit, because I think you do a good job talking to the audience, presenting things in a relatively clear way, engaging us with your eye contact and those kinds of things. Now, I don't know if that's your parents, your long experience, or playing StarCraft or whatever it is, and that kind of thing. All right.